Hello, my name is Kyle Dimond and welcome to a brand new episode of VMTV Vaults. My guest for this episode, Mr. Dominic Gibbs. He is the promoter for Cage Steel. Cage Steel, if you are unaware, is a UK regional promotion. So we talked a lot about the last 16 months, but in particular how it affects a regional promotion compared to a promotion that's bigger than that. Which includes things like having to adapt the way that they target their audience, putting on an event behind closed doors, and their new event, Cage Steel 26, which is on August 21st, which will have fans back in attendance. You can purchase tickets for that event by the ticket link in the description below, which would be greatly appreciated. But the man himself, Mr. Dominic Gibbs, to tell you all about Cage Steel. Okay, so I guess the best place to start is if we go back a year, because I'm really curious to find out, as a regional promotion, what sort of challenges that brought? Because we've seen, on larger scales, how promotions like the UFC and Cage Warriors and Bellator have approached these kind of things. But it's very different being a regional promotion like yourselves, because you're very reliant on ticket sales, I would assume. And so what sort of challenges did not being able to put on events bring to a promotion like Cage Steel?
Well, first of all, it was, it was 3 weeks to flatten the curve. So you kind of look at it. We managed to squeeze a show in March 2020. It was kind of the last week before lockdown. There was 3 weeks to flatten the curve. So it was like, it's cool. Our next show's booked for August. We'll get that show. And if not, we'll move it to September, October, and then we'll still do a show in December. It'll all be good. And as we all know, 16 months later, we're still locked down. So the biggest challenge at the time was trying to plan something and not knowing if it would happen. So you were always kind of looking at, when can we put our next show on? Let's look at this. And we were even like matching stuff and, trying to be as normal as possible. It then obviously became apparent that there was no way we were getting a show on in 2020. We had to kind of write it off. We kind of then started looking towards 2021, what would happen in 2021. And you're always trying to second guess. Pay-per-view didn't seem an option. Like you say, regional shows, the kind of fan base doesn't always filter down to kind of away from the bigger organizations, if you like. So you get a kind of MMA snob, if you like, who they'll watch the big promotions, but they probably don't know about the promotions underneath that kind of bring these fighters through to get onto these kind of the bigger promotions. So it didn't look like an option. We then got to a point where we've got some fighters that kind of worked with them. So, for instance, Adam Bramhold is the only UK fighter that's on a outside like UFC and that on a 5-figure contract. And we felt that if we supported him, he would get to the bigger organisations probably by March 2021, having had a few fights under our promotion. But that didn't happen. So we from my point of view, I felt like we've got this young fighters kind of life in our hands and we're going to have to do something. And it's obviously apparent that all the other fighters were struggling in terms of getting fights. So we looked to do something in April 10th. We did a pay-per-view show behind closed doors only. Cost me a lot of money, but we knew that we had to push our brand out there and we had to get these fighters on. It was more about the kind of wider scale, the kind of MMA world community, if you like, rather than just about Cage Steel. If it was a purely financial decision, I'd have probably never taken that decision, but it was more than that.
Yeah, and that's such a strange position to be put in, right? Where you're doing this thing, and like you said, if everything was normal and you were just putting on events with fans, you would never think like, why would that ever be a thought, right? So to go through that process, how challenging was that to get everything going, considering it is a complete shift from what you would normally be doing?
10th of April show was the hardest one I've ever done. And that wasn't just in terms of moving the whole shift in terms of how we market things, because we were then going to a kind of pay-per-view rather than tickets. Jumping through the hoops of the council and the police were ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. So that was definitely. I kind of have this thing where I say, was it my hardest show? Because I kind of forget when we did Sheffield Arena, that was a tough show. But I do feel that the COVID show, if you like, was the hardest, because it was just the challenge of actually meeting the demands of the authoritarians, if you like.
Yeah, I guess like there's a bit of recency bias, right? Because it's fresh in your mind, you can sort of relive that so easily. But
Yeah.
how was it? Like you said, that another part that I thought was interesting is you're kind of appealing to a different audience, right? Because you'll get people who will go to MMA events because it's a night out, but would they necessarily buy a pay-per-view sort of thing if they're at home? So what was that like in terms of approaching a different audience by going pay-per-view?
Yeah, you have to start the kind of marketing 101. You have to look at what we call an ICA, your ideal client, and you kind of look at them and say, what does that client do? How do we make sure that we appeal to their nature? And then how do we also shift other people's mentality? So it didn't mean that those people that normally come to a show were not our audience anymore. It just meant that we had to give them a different offering. They had to stay in on a Saturday night. Everyone had to stay in anyway. So it was like, you're stopping anyway. Why don't you watch our show? So it was kind of, in some respects, marketing to change people's mentality, and in other respects, marketing to those people that would buy.
Do you think? I can imagine. Do you think it will make any sort of difference going forward in terms of lessons that you've learned from doing that? Because like we said, like no promotion would have ever thought about that, and so by doing it, it sort of makes you, like you said, take a step back and sort of re-examine things and kind of start from the start again. So is there lessons learned that you can carry forward when you have fans back?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm one of those that I'm my biggest critique. I'm not the biggest critic. I'll critique everything that I do, and I look at things and I think there's loads that I could learn and loads that we could do. And my kind of thinking was, well, maybe there's a pay-per-view audience forever that are outside the kind of area that you would attract people to travel to. So maybe it was something that we can do, and we are working on that. We have linked up with some very kind of influential people and businesses, and we're going to do that. And there were a lot to learn in terms of the pay-per-view links and things like that. And there were mistakes made by kind of third party, people that you bring in and you entrust with a service, and they don't kind of follow it through, and that was kind of quite annoying. But like you say, massive lessons to learn from. And I think I keep saying it's going to be one of the best things that happened to us, because it's made us think differently. It's made us think about our audience. I was always kind of audience focused, but now it's like, listen, we're getting crowds back now. We're kind of focused on that, but we never kind of focused on the people that were watching. So we used to sell pay-per-view as well, but we never kind of geared our promotion up for those people watching at home. We always had the MC looking at the crowd and the cameras and kind of a blank backdrop, if you like. And it's like, maybe we should look at turning the MC around and putting him on the screen with the fans in the back and making the fans part of the show, those people who can't see it on TV. So loads of things like that. Yeah, that's just an example.
So obviously you've got 26 coming up on the 21st of August and stuff. Obviously fans back in the arena, which is great. I mean, I feel like I know the answers to this question already, but what has that process been like? Of, like you said, because for about a year it was maybe we can do it in a few weeks. No, okay, maybe a couple of months. No, and it's been constantly like that. And I think there was a whole feeling across so many different like areas of Yeah, okay, yeah, we'll be back in 3 months. Yeah, sure, whatever sort of thing. Like, okay, we'll see when that gets put back, but it does seem to be making progress and stuff. So now you get people booking shows and stuff like that again. So what has that process been like? Has it felt quite like a little bit too good to be true in terms of like, well, if we book this and then it gets cancelled again, like that sort of whole deal?
Yeah, I think we're kind of used to it. You know what I mean? I
Mm,
kind of made plans thinking, well, when we kind of booking the show, I had a let's do this and it's fully open and everything's okay. We also had a secondary plan of
mm,
what if there's restrictions, what if there's only half a crowd, what if there's only, how do we fit the VIPs, all this. And then there was a no crowd scenario. So I kind of did all the risk management stuff on the three potential shows. But like you say, um, it has been a bit kind of, is it going to happen? Will this definitely happen? And as we've kind of got closer, it's felt like it is more real. Boris last night said some good things, which were kind of made me feel a bit better about things. We didn't know if it was going to be all tied up in this COVID vaccination passports and tests, and I
mm.
really don't want to get into that, if I'm honest. So I'm happy at where we're kind of going down. And like you say, all the time it's like, will it happen? Will it happen? And you're kind of looking at so many different scenarios. You're looking at the figures and seeing if rates are going up, and then whether it's cases or whether it's
Hmm.
hospitalization or whether it's death. And it does literally test your mentality.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, you've got the one fight announced already in Crosby versus Lomas. When can we expect more announcements for the rest of the card?
Within the next day or two, we're literally, because we've kind of been a bit tentative.
Yeah.
We have been waiting on Boris. Last night was like, right, we're full steam ahead. Let's go with this. Let's get these fights out. Let's get them announced. Our graphic designer has literally had a massive workload piled on her desk this morning. It's like, right, get these fight cards made.
Mm.
Let's get this stuff out there. There are some good fights on this fight card, and it's pretty much done. The fight cards, probably 99% there. We're working on a couple of little dropouts here and there. So as you do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all good.
Is there potential for another event this year, or would we be looking at 2022 realistically?
Well, ideally, we do have two events booked in. We have August 21st and we have the
Okay.
4th of December. And then you're doing the whole, will we get locked down in December,
Yeah.
in kind of winter because of flu season? And I just, we're just going to keep going as we can keep going and see what happens, really. But
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
hopefully two this year.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for your time, man. That's everything.
Hey, no
So,
problem.
appreciate it, and excited for that Cage Steel 26 coming up on Saturday 21st. That'd be great.
Are you getting your press pass?
Ooh, I
Because,
do not know because I live. Where is it? Is it in Doncaster, right?
yes, yeah.
I live all the way down in Gloucester, so it's a bit of a
All right.
it's a bit of a journey. But I hope if I can make it, then I definitely will be.
It's a couple of hours, man. I tell you what,
Yeah.
right? We had an American fighter fight on our show, and they were astounded how we Brits look at things, how we say, "Oh, it's all the way down in Gloucester," and he's like, "We drive 45 minutes to go to a restaurant." I'm
Yeah,
like,
I
"You're
know
mad."
exactly what you mean. Yeah.
So yeah, it's we kind of had a crazy mentality when you think about England or Britain. You can be anywhere in a couple of hours. So yeah.
Yeah, I hear about it from like US fans and stuff all the time where they've got to travel to an event, and it's like even just their nearest event is like 2 hours. Like there is no in
Yeah.
between, and I guess we do have this mentality of like that's like the other side of England, which is really not that far in the grand scheme, right? But yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you very much, man. Hopefully,
Great to talk to you. Thank you.
hopefully we can do this again or something. We'll do it like
Yeah.
after the event, maybe do a recap or something like that. That'd be good. Thank you for watching this episode of VMTV Vaults with myself and Mr. Dominic Gibbs of Cage Steel. Again, if you want to get tickets for Cage Steel 26, which is on August 21st, you can buy tickets via the description. There's a link in there, which is our ticket link, so that would be greatly appreciated. Until the next one, stay tuned to VMTV, hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode of this, or The Violent Mike every Friday at 8.